All right, now today what we're going to learn about is the world of quantum mechanics, subatomic physics, the laws of physics that apply to the tiniest of the building blocks in the universe. Things like the protons and the neutrons and the electrons, the quarks and the mesons and the gluons, all of this stuff that make up the universe. Now, the first thing you need to know is that everything in the universe is composed of waves, just like this. All of the light that you see, all of the things that you feel, all of the heat to heat your home, all of the air conditioning, all of the stars in the skies, absolutely everything in the universe that you see, taste, feel, touch, or consume comes to you in waves. And this all started with the Big Bang. Some 14 billion years ago, like it says in the Bible, God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. In a way, that's exactly how it happened, because light is created by the interaction of the electrons in the atom structure itself. When they move around, they create light or they absorb light. It's as simple as that. Light in all of its spectrums and everything else that you know comes in wave forms like this. Everything you observe from the moment you wake up in the morning, from the sunrise to the sunset, it's all created by the subatomic energies of the proton, which you see on the left. As you can tell, it's composed of other smaller things like quarks and gluons and wonderful things like that. But the most amazing part of the atomic structure is the electron. But the electron does not fall into the proton. It's not carried like gravity around, like the Earth around the sun. This is the description of the Earth's orbit around the sun. The electron does not stay like that, or it would go crashing into the nucleus of the atom. Instead, there are other forces that keep it at exactly precise distances from the nucleus. And it is this precise distance from the nucleus that makes up every single element that we know about in the universe. Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, the stuff we breathe, the stuff we eat. And again, as the electrons move in and out of these precise orbitals, they create light when they drop down to a lower state of energy, like you just saw there, or they will absorb light when they move down to a lower state. I don't know if I explained that right, but waves are always moving in a single direction as well. We're going to talk about how the waves move in the direction that everything in the universe is headed in, because it's all wave energy. And the shape of the wave energy, it's as simple as that. It's the shape of the wave energy, I have to say it again, that creates everything in your reality, absolutely everything. As electrons form up, they form into different shapes or bubbles. You can think of them as a bubble because they are a spherical type of thing, not a particle. And the sphere, it can appear from out of nowhere. That's part of the magical mystery of the universe. Electrons appear out of nowhere. When this form of energy that you see in front of you, this is an electron wave. Those are the crests of the wave. And in between, you have the valleys. And as the wave moves up and down, in between the valleys of the waves, you have what acts like a particle, and that is the electron. So it is both a wave moving like this and a particle that is created and destroyed instantaneously by its own waves. Now, that sounds like an impossible type of magic, but that's the magic that the rest of the universe is composed of. So there's lots and lots of evidence, and it's all verified by formula and laws of physics like this one that's also moving in a wave action. Everything in the universe is in waves, including the information that provides us with all of these laws of physics. So there's a supercode of information of which we are just a subset of the supercode. All the laws known to man are subsets of the known universe and the laws that created the universe. And it starts with this spherical bubble that creates every single element, every part of reality, everything that you see, feel, taste, or touch, consume, bump into, hear, or know about, is formed by these bubbles that come out of nowhere and surround the nucleus of the atom, which again are smaller bubbles of energy. And the beautiful part is that they have to stay, the electron bubbles have to stay in relationship to the nucleus as a ratio of their wave length. So these are representations of the orbitals, and an electron cannot escape the probability of being in those areas. Everything is probable, and the electron will take on a probability of shape depending on how many of them appear out of nowhere and make up the elements of the universe. In their lowest state, it's a single bubble. In the next highest state, they form two bubbles like this. And in this state, you actually have two electrons that are sharing the same atom, and they're becoming married in the sharing of their energy. And I don't use that word lightly. We're going to explain why I talk about the marriage of electrons to each other in just a few minutes. But with the absorption of light, the electrons can change shapes, or the reflection of light, photons, they can change shape again. So all of the light in the universe comes simply from these bubbles changing shape within their own sphere of existence. And again, all of this is because the laws of physics are themselves a waveform that is transmitted all throughout the universe by something called the God particle field. And what this means is that this shape of the electron wave action, which I already showed you earlier, and this is the formula for the symmetry of the two waveforms that compose an electron. And as you can see by the shape here, it's exactly the same shape as our DNA molecule. But remember, what I'm showing you is the shape of the electron wave particle duality. So from the smallest objects in the universe, the electrons and the protons and the quarks and all of these things in quantum physics, we get life. And life actually follows the same format, the same patterning, and the same form. Now here's further proof. Electrons have either an up or a down spin. And when they become married to each other, they both know about each other's up and down spin. This is the most amazing part of quantum physics that I want to leave you with for the purpose of this video. And when two electrons become married inside an atom and share the same state of energy, they gain a form of consciousness. And we know this because you can take them apart, you can separate them by thousands of miles. Here's an electron that has been married near the moon and another one near the Earth, and they know about each other. They will remain in the same state in relation to each other, no matter how far apart you remove them from each other. So even outside of the speed of light and all of that, electrons know about each other. And this entanglement is what causes the code of life as we know it. And finally, at this point, you should be asking yourselves, where does this guy get all of this information and how does he prove any of it? It's fascinating stuff. I hope you find it fascinating, as much as I do at least. And but you should be asking yourself, how does he prove any of this? Is it just conjecture and science fiction, or is it real science? Well, the fact is it's real science, all of it. And I first got my first inklings about this from the discovery of the God particle. And if you Google it, you'll find that it was discovered. It is a real thing. The God particle field creates everything else in the universe. It started at the Big Bang and still out there, impacting everything that you do or say or think every second of every day, because it's the particle that creates all the other atomic particles, all of the electrons and protons and everything that exists cannot exist before the God particle, before the things that exist move through the God particle field, which is everywhere. Without the God particle field, the universe would be a huge mass of soup. No energy would congeal into anything, and we would not exist. No life would be possible. Planets would not be possible because everything that exists needs mass, and the God particle creates mass. It was fully discovered on July 4th, 2012 by the people using the Large Hadron Collider in Geneva, Switzerland, the biggest, most expensive scientific apparatus in the history of the world, billions of dollars, 18 miles in circumference. It's an amazing feat. No one really understands what they discovered until me, when I realized how important that is, and part of which you have learned in this video. But the details are in the God Particle Bible. I hope you'll go take a look and get the same basic foundation about the existence of the universe that I have. Okay, now the next one I wrote was the force equation, and it's based on the same information, but at this point I've discovered a mathematical formula that's similar to Einstein's E equals mc squared, but it's dealing in energies thousands of times greater because it's the force that creates all of the energy in the universe. And so it needed an equation. I figured it out. It's F equals TC cubed, and you'll find out all about how that works in the force equation. If you're scientifically oriented or math oriented, you'll love to find the details in much greater degree than I talk about them in the God Particle Bible or in any of my other books. Next, I realized that a lot of this energy that we've been discovering can be used to save the planet, and we are in grave danger. The scientists of the world, and right after World War II, invented the doomsday clock, and at that time they set the hands at 20 minutes to midnight, which means where that midnight is the end of the world, where we destroy ourselves and the whole planet in a thermonuclear disaster or something similar. And so after World War II, they put the hands at 20 minutes to midnight. Well, as you can see today, the hands are set at 3 minutes to midnight because now we have many, many millions of times more nuclear weapons and other ecological disasters going on as we speak. There's just too many people on the planet. There are too many terrorist groups, and as soon as they get their hands on, there are already a lot of terrorist nations that get their hands on nuclear weapons, so several of which are threatening to push the button that ends the whole world. So that's why we're 3 minutes to midnight, but there are some things that we can do as individuals to help save the planet, and I put that in the Doomsday Watch. So that's a very important book, one of my favorites. After that, I realized that a lot of the energies that we're talking about has to do with evolution, not just the evolution of life on Earth, but the evolution of all life all over the universe. And it has to do with what you've already been shown, the waveform of the electron, which is I described right here in a simple little diagram, is exactly the same as the waveform of our DNA molecule. It's a double helix, and it looks very similar to this, except it's also twisting on itself to get fit into, so they can fit them into every single cell in your body. So this basic wave of energy that forms all the energy in the universe, all of it, and it's shaped exactly like this, is the same shape as our DNA, and I've told you why in this video, so I won't belabor that. But it has to do with evolution too, and it goes all the way back to the Big Bang, of course, and the forces that we've talked about in this video. So the origin of creation is similar to Darwin's origin of the species, except I go way back to the origin of the whole universe, and not just life on this planet. And very helpful to understand some of the concepts that I've laid out here. And then after that book, I realized that we had a code of life, the DNA molecule, and codes can be broken, and that's what we're doing right now. In fact, as a civilization, is we are breaking the code of life. We're deconstructing, reverse engineering the DNA molecule, finding out where diseases are, where all the traits are, human traits, and decoding our own code of life. Well, if you can decode this code of life, we can start to decode the super code also, is what I call it, the code that creates the code and creates everything else, including all of these other concepts that I've told you about in this video. So cracking the code of life is my latest and greatest, and I hope you'll take a look at that because we go into much more detail on, again, some of the basic physical science of how electrons take on this shape and how they shape our own DNA. And our own DNA, by the way, is how our own events, our destiny, the things that we interact with in our life. I've gone into it a little bit here in the video about intermingling, and that's the essence of how we need to learn how to crack our own code and take control of our own events, our own destiny, our own fate. It can be done. It's not as difficult as it sounds, and the computer code is way more complicated than this code that determines our own life, because we are in control of our own life, and we understand the major events, and we understand, if we look at it carefully, how we got into these things and how we can get ourselves out of these things. That has to do with understanding the code of life and how everything is intermingled. Okay, so hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you'll take a look at one of these books. All you have to do, or all of them, is go to Amazon, Audible, or Kindle. There's a version of each book that I mentioned in those places. They can be free. And this last picture is the code of life, the DNA molecule itself. As you can see, it's exactly the same shape as the waveform in that forms the electron energy in the world, which is in the universe, which is everything, except that it's twisted on itself, and that allows these little nodes to come in here, and that's the computer coding going on right in here with the four base pairs. I mean, with all the base pairs made up of the 4 nucleotides and all of that good genetic stuff that you can learn about in my book, and how it's all part of cracking the code of life. So I hope you will join with me in cracking the code of life. And please go to Amazon or Audible or Kindle, wherever you got one of my books, and give it a review, because that is how I started this thing. You should be asking yourselves, how does it prove all of this stuff? Well, in science, we don't prove our theories as individuals. We wait for peer reviews to come in. In other words, other people replicate our experiments, our experimental results, and you know what mine are already, and so you are a peer of mine, and I'd love you to do a peer review, because the more peer reviews I get, the closer to understanding the truth that we will really have on a scientific basis a true scientific basis. So this is not just me saying these things, but actually millions of people in agreement. That's all truth is. When we all understand something and agree, that's truth. And so as you learn some of these things through my books, please go back, give it a review. We need the more peer reviews, the closer to the truth we will get.